In today's video, how do you learn how to peak properly as a coach and a client? Hey guys, what's going on? This is Paul Ravella from ProPhysique.com, and I have a special guest today.
Natalie Matthews.
Also known as the Fit Vegan Chef on your Instagram. Sioux Falls was your last show.
Yeah.
So, and actually that's a perfect segue in today's question about peaking.
Yes.
Because Sioux Falls was interesting. But, so what we're gonna talk about is how do you peak perfectly for a show? And this is a really deep topic because we can get into things like sodium and water and carbohydrates. But I think the most important thing before any of that when it comes to peaking, and you can tell me if you agree or not, is you gotta be lean enough.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the key to it. To create like the perfect peaking protocol, you have to be, whatever you thought lean was, that times 100.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I try to do with my clients before peaking them is get them to a place where things become very predictable.
Yeah.
So that we're not trying to guess about pulling this or adding that or, too many variables makes things very hard to manage.
Absolutely.
I try to use one or two variables. My favorite way to peak is to just be adding in carbs, and then on the day of the show, focus on a little bit of sodium, a little bit of water, and a pump.
Yeah.
Being able to get a pump.
Yeah.
Those are my favorite things. So let's talk about how we peaked you this year for multiple shows.
Yeah.
Because that's another good question is, well, what do you do after you do a show?
Yeah. We've done different, peaking strategies. Even like last year, I feel like since 2017, everything has been different. So
yeah, well, I think that comes with experience.
Yeah, we have learned from each one, and you got to remember too, no peaking will be ever the same, just because you're in a different starting point every time that you step on stage, basically. Yeah, the body
changes so much from week to week, especially when you're that lean. So I want to give you guys some tangible advice. So first things first. If you haven't been to a show or if you haven't actually seen what stage lean looks like in person, you need to do that, because a lot of us will go to the gym and see some abs, and we'll see some veins on our biceps.
And they're like, I'm ready, and no, that's not it. You kind of have to pass, whatever, like I said, whatever you thought lean was, you kind of have to pass that. That's what makes it really, really hard. But it's fun. It's fun to see how much you can push your body, how much you can push your limits. As an athlete, it just drives me. I love that grind.
Yeah, and so something that we did with Natalie was we started prep super early because we initially were going to get on stage in March. That changed. The show got canceled that she was initially going to do, and so we had to move back to May. But what that meant was we were so far ahead of schedule for conditioning. Yeah. I feel like the look you brought to your first show of the year was just fantastic.
Yeah, that was my favorite.
I don't know if I'll have video clips to put in here. I have it in my other iMovie, but not on here.
I got pictures.
So we'll put some pictures in here. But so here's my philosophy on peaking. We are going to get so lean, and throughout the process of getting lean, I add these things in called refeeds and diet breaks. And I learn how people respond to carbohydrates, water, sodium training, and we learn when someone looks their best. Is it going to be the day after their highest carb day, 2 days after? Is it going to be after 2 high carb days in a row? But typically, what I do now is called a linear progressive load, meaning I'm going to get someone shredded, and then I'm going to walk carbs up every day going into the show, starting either Monday or Tuesday, just depending on how things have done. And then what I'll do is I'll do a little bit of a depletion the weekend before. So I kind of set you up to be really sensitive to carbohydrates. So a little bit of cardio the weekend before, a little bit of low carb, and then we start walking carbs up every day. Now, the difficult part is you have to really pay attention to how you look and feel.
Yeah, we were checking in every single day. So that's when it comes really hands-on. But I felt like that was necessary, especially going into the pro stage. You just have to pay attention to every little detail. Yeah, so now what we do with the check-ins is every morning I would have her check in, basically weight, and then I would also want to know how she looked post-workout, because that's when you're really lean, when you're shredded, you're not going to wake up looking full and hard and good. It's not usually till you get moving. So on show day, if you wake up a little bit flat, I think that's actually a great place to be, because you've just had the highest carb day. And I'm going to give some specific numbers for anyone that's interested. I'll try to recall your peaks. Okay.
But what I like to do is have your highest carb day the day before the show, and then you just wake up a little bit tight, a little bit flat, and then as soon as you start moving and pumping up, it's like, bam, your body comes alive.
Yeah, I remember for that first show, like, it was so drastic from morning to, like, when I actually got on stage. Yeah, it was pretty cool because I was just getting fuller and drier, and I had past experiences of just showing up on stage not full. I always came in conditioned. That's, like, kind of like what I'm known for. I always come the part, but filling out was such a hard thing for me because I feel like, I don't know, maybe my body takes a little bit more carbs or it takes time to fill out a little bit differently, but that's some of the things that we have learned over the years.
Well, and the other hard part about messing with conditioning on show day is as you're adding carbs in, you don't want to soften up any body parts that might not be as lean.
Exactly.
So like for the females, glutes, hamstrings, all that stuff, the thing you worry about is like you fill out in your shoulders, everything looks great, but then you look a little softer in the lower body.
Yeah.
So that's something we got to pay close attention to. So, you know, and I think we found a really good balance this year with your body. And I think you're a little bit on the ectomorphic side. So you have nice round muscle bellies. And that's why I think, you know, the feedback we got was basically to look fuller on stage.
Yeah.
And we figured that out, that you need to work out.
Exactly.
Little band pumps weren't doing it for you.
No.
You needed some weights. You needed to like be grinding backstage before you walked out.
I really, like the best look, well, besides the South Dakota one, not South Dakota.
Sioux Falls.
Sioux Falls.
It was South Dakota.
Yeah. Besides that one, I really enjoyed the look that I brought to Indiana just because backstage, there was like a full gym. Like I was able to do deadlifts, I was able to do things that I normally would never do going before on stage.
Especially in a bikini.
Yeah, but it felt so good. Like as an athlete, you know, I just felt so good.
I think most of us can always say we look the best about midway through a workout.
Yeah.
When you still have the food pumping through, you haven't depleted it, your body temperature is up. And so one of the things I've really tried to do with my athletes this year is I have them train the day before the show.
Yeah.
And then I try to get some of them to train either the morning of the show or sometimes after prejudging, because you just look better and fuller and harder mid-workout or after a workout. And for the rest of the day, your body is just kind of in that process of kind of replenishing, storing, digesting, processing. I think, you know, a lot of people will stop training a day or two out, and I don't find that to be productive for looking your best.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we've done it in the past, and I mean, it shows like the proof.
Yeah. So I'm going to talk about some specific numbers. So if I do recall, I think the highest, let's say you had a show on Saturday, I think the highest carb day we might have had was like 260, 270, maybe 250.
I think we were hitting 300s.
Did we?
Yeah.
Okay,
but we started with the plan of just going for the 250, 260s.
Okay, and then adjusted.
And as we kept looking at my physique, you kept...
Okay, so let's say she's going to end up at 300 on Friday, right, with a show on Saturday morning. That means on Friday it's 300. On Thursday, she's going to be probably 250 to 270. On Wednesday, 220 to 230. On Tuesday, maybe 180. And on Monday, maybe 150 to 180, somewhere in that range. So we're basically coming up to maybe 15 to 30 carbs per day based on how she responds. Now, if the weight starts dropping, which it did for a few of the shows, we might be more aggressive with the carbohydrates. So that's the variable that I like to play with. Now, the only way that works is if you keep water the same, you keep sodium steady, and the best way to do that is to keep all your variables the same with food.
Yeah.
Because digestion is going to be consistent and sodium is going to be consistent if you just eat the same foods every day. And for most of us that are bodybuilders, that's not a problem.
Yeah.
But for some people that are like these crazy flexible dieters, they're just used to like throwing in whenever they want to hit their numbers. Peak week is the week that I say that's probably the worst time to do that.
Yeah, I personally clean it up like 3 weeks out. I just keep everything predictable. You know, I keep my protein sources the same. I start, especially on peak week, I start removing some fiber just because, again, we want to keep the tummy flat and we want to keep things predictable, and I keep everything pretty basic. It looks very boring on peak week, but that's the only way that we know how to like manipulate everything else.
Again, if you're trying to manipulate too many variables, it becomes very difficult. And so if we know that the training is consistent, the diet is consistent, and we're walking the carbs up and we're looking better or worse, well, we know how to adjust.
Exactly.
And there are times, I do have clients that don't look great after a high carb day. So we might do the high carb day for show day on Wednesday or Thursday based on how they respond. So this is where it really is important to understand what's been going on throughout peaking.
Yes.
Because the feedback that I hate from someone is like, I looked better the day after the show.
Yeah.
And that's usually because people went out and drank and had much of sodium. And so I've learned to go, okay, well, if that worked for you, maybe even the next show, we try something that you would typically get post-show the day before.
Exactly.
So it just depends where your physique is at. Now, for like back-to-back shows like she had, what we would often do was take a day or two to deplete again, like Sunday, Monday, and then start bringing the carbs back. But I always like to get to that baseline. I like to get to that baseline where you're pretty depleted, you're as shredded as we want you to be, and then we can start walking the carbohydrates up and manipulating that one variable, because carbohydrates are going to fill out the muscle. A lot of people try to eat a bunch of carbohydrates on show day.
Yeah.
And here's my concern there. Carbohydrates that you are digesting that same day are not going to be available in your muscle cells. They're just not going to be there. They got to go through the whole bioavailability process to get into your muscles. So if you're trying to load carbs the morning of the show, some of those simple sugars are going to be in your bloodstream and they're going to be helpful, but a lot of them are not going to be seated in the muscle. And that's really why I like to focus most of the carbs earlier in the week.
Yeah.
And show day, I just like to keep things kind of steady.
Yeah, and on show day, I'm pretty much eating minimal just to keep satiated. But yeah, the more, imagine if I would be eating tons and tons of food on show day when you want to stay flat. So yeah, I kind of like this approach so much better. And one thing I think we should mention, like, those are only my peak week macros. You know, I wasn't dieting at 300, just so people know. You know, like, there's some people that do. Lucky you.
Well, I'll say this, for the people that are able to diet on 300 grams of carbohydrates, they still feel the same terrible as if they were on 100. It's the low body fat that causes the response. What Natalie does a really good job of is food volume. Because of her vegan lifestyle, she's able to create meals that look delicious. And if you don't know about her channel, she documents this with your chef. I think it helps when your food volume is good, satiety is high, because of the type of foods that you're eating. Sometimes we can get, flexible dieters can get into the habit of just eating whatever's easiest. And that's not going to be the best for volume and satiety. Absolutely.
No, I agree. And when you're on prep, you know, you get like, there's different phases in the sport. Like right now I'm being a little bit more flexible, a lot more flexible, but you know, it's part of life, you know. And then when I'm on prep, it's 100, you know. So just keep it predictable. Don't make it harder than what it needs to be.
Let's talk about any other little like peak week tricks. Like what did we learn this year? Like I'm not a big fan of diuretics or water pills or anything like that.
We never done that.
No, and honestly, muscle is 70 to 80% water. So if you're taking water out of the body does not go, well, I'm just going to leave the water in the muscle. No, it pulls it from the muscle. It pulls it from the tissues in the body. If you're not shredded and you take a water pill, there will be a window of time where you look better, but timing that is so hard. And I would much rather just get someone truly stage lean, where actually drinking water throughout the day actually makes you look better and feel better.
I thought that was amazing, just having water throughout the show day. Like, well, and I see people, like, I've seen people faint backstage. Like, it's insane. Because they pull every show. Water, they don't drink at all throughout the day.
They'll get cramps, they'll start to shake on stage.
So it's really scary. So, you know, it's nice to have a healthier approach to doing this. You know, like, there's so many different approaches out there that totally work, but, you know, you just have to, like, find what works best for you.
All right, well, I think we're gonna cut it here. If you have any questions about peaking, let us know below. We're gonna go shoot another video and put it on Natalie's channel, so I'll link her channel below. Go check that out, and we'll talk to you guys tomorrow.
Bye, guys.